Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to dive into something that you hopefully will never need,
Yeah,
but should absolutely be prepared for
absolutely.
filing a flood insurance claim.
Okay.
We've got this incredible flood insurance claim guide to help us unpack everything.
Yeah, it's a great roadmap for one of those situations you never want to think about,
Right.
but can really be a lifesaver when disaster strikes.
Exactly. And you know me, I love a good roadmap.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah,
let's start with the first thing that happens, the flood itself.
right.
The guide really stresses safety first, even before you even start thinking about insurance.
Yeah, that's the point I think a lot of people would miss in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
You're dealing with potential damage, maybe even injuries.
Right.
It's easy to forget basic safety precautions.
The guide actually suggests taking a beat before even entering your home
Oh, wow.
to assess for hazards
Right.
like structural damage or downed power lines.
Absolutely.
And speaking of hazards, the guide has this whole section on protective gear.
Okay.
It basically says you shouldn't be wading into floodwater without waterproof boots, gloves,
Oh,
and even a mask.
yeah, it sounds extreme. But floodwater is a toxic cocktail.
Mm.
It's not just water.
Yeah.
It's full of sewage chemicals. Who knows what else?
Yeah.
Definitely not something you want to be splashing around in without protection.
Okay, so safety check done. Hopefully everyone's okay. Now it's time to deal with the insurance part, right?
Exactly. And the guide is very clear on this report.
Mm-hmm.
The claim to your insurance company immediately.
Yeah.
Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Just pick up the phone, go online, and report it.
Makes sense. But here's where it gets really interesting, the documentation phase.
Yes.
This is where the guide really shines.
Yeah.
It's almost like having an insurance lawyer whispering in your ear,
I like that.
telling you exactly what you need to do to build your case.
It's all about creating an airtight record of the damage. The guide says to take photos, and I mean a lot of photos, hundreds if necessary.
Hundreds. That seems like a bit much.
It might sound excessive, but think about it. You're trying to paint a complete picture of the damage.
Right.
Wide shots, close-ups, details, everything.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic. You're not just saying, my couch is ruined. You're showing them exactly how the flood water warped the frame, stained the fabric, and left a funky smell.
Exactly. And the guide goes beyond photos. It recommends using measuring tapes and rulers to give visual context to the damage.
So you're not just showing a picture of a water line, you're showing that it's 2 feet high on the wall.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. The guide even suggests recording a narrated video walkthrough of your home.
A video. Wow, they really mean business.
It's about creating the most comprehensive and compelling evidence possible. Imagine you're the adjuster watching that video. You're seeing the damage through the homeowner's eyes, hearing their voice, understanding the emotional impact.
Right.
It's powerful stuff.
I'm convinced photos, measurements, videos, it's like creating a CSI file for your flood damage.
Yeah,
But there's more to documentation, right?
absolutely. The
Okay.
guide is very specific about creating a detailed written inventory of all damaged items.
So we're talking furniture, appliances, electronics, clothing, everything, right?
Everything. And it's not just listing the items. You need to include the item's value purchase date and even the approximate cost of replacement. This creates a clear baseline for your claim.
Wow, this is way more than just jotting down a few notes. It's like a forensic accounting of your entire household.
It might seem like a lot of work, but trust me, this level of detail is crucial. It shows the insurance company that you're organized, you're thorough, and you're serious about getting a fair settlement.
So you're not just saying, trust me, my stuff is ruined. You're giving them hard evidence to back it up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that brings us to the next stage, preparing for the adjuster's visit.
Okay.
But before we dive into that, let's take a moment to recap what we've learned so far. Safety first, report the claim immediately, and document everything meticulously.
Okay.
This is the foundation of a strong flood insurance claim.
This is great stuff. I'm already feeling more prepared just hearing about it.
Excellent.
So let's take a break and we'll come back and talk about what happens when that adjuster shows up at your door.
Sounds good.
All right, so we've talked about safety, reporting the claim, and documenting everything like a pro. What happens next?
Well, next comes the home visit from the insurance adjuster.
Okay.
This is where all that hard work documenting everything really pays off.
I bet. The guide mentions that it's super important to be present during the inspection. Why is that?
Think of it like this. You're the director of the disaster movie that is your flooded home.
Right.
You know the story better than anyone. And the adjuster needs you to guide them through the plot points, so to speak.
I love that analogy. So I'm pointing out the key areas of damage, making sure they see that crack in the foundation, the warped floorboards, the water-stained ceiling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're the expert on your own loss, and by being present, you ensure that nothing is missed or overlooked.
Mhm.
Plus, having all your documentation neatly organized makes the whole process smoother.
Okay. I'm making a note here. Buy a binder, lots of highlighters, and maybe a label maker. Anything else I should have ready for the adjuster?
The guide recommends having a copy of your insurance policy on hand, just in case any questions come up about coverage specifics.
Smart. Now let's say the adjuster has come and gone, and you're waiting to hear back about the settlement. Is there anything you should be doing in the meantime?
This is where the guide gets proactive. It talks about taking steps to prevent further damage, even while you're waiting for the insurance company to process your claim.
That's interesting. What kind of steps are we talking about?
Things like removing waterlogged items to prevent mold growth, drying out the affected areas with fans and dehumidifiers, covering broken windows or damaged roofs to keep the elements out.
So you're not just sitting around waiting for the check to arrive, you're actively taking steps to mitigate the damage.
Precisely. And this shows the insurance company that you're responsible and taking steps to minimize the loss. It can actually strengthen your claim.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like you're saying, look, I'm doing my part to make this situation better.
Exactly. And while you're taking those steps, the guide emphasizes, you guessed it, documentation. Take photos of every action you take, keep receipts for any supplies you buy, and log all your time spent on these mitigation efforts.
Wow, I'm sensing a theme here. Documentation really is key throughout this entire process.
It's your insurance superpower. Now let's talk about what happens after you receive the insurance company's settlement offer. The guide is very clear on this point. You don't have to just accept their first offer.
Wait, really? I thought the adjuster's assessment was pretty much set in stone.
Not necessarily. The guide actually encourages homeowners to carefully review the settlement offer and compare it to their own documentation. Remember that detailed inventory we talked about?
Oh, right. That's coming in handy again.
Absolutely. If you believe the settlement offer is too low, the guide advises submitting a proof of loss statement. This is a formal document outlining your disagreement with the assessment and providing additional evidence to support your claim.
So it's like saying, hold on, I think you've missed a few things here.
Exactly. And this is where all that meticulous documentation becomes your best friend. You can back up your claim with photos, videos, receipts, repair, estimates, anything that helps paint a clear picture of the true extent of the damage.
This is empowering. You're not just at the mercy of the insurance company, you have the right to advocate for yourself and negotiate for a fair settlement.
Precisely. The guide stresses the importance of understanding your rights as a policyholder and not being afraid to push back if you feel the offer is inadequate.
This guide is like having a secret weapon in your back pocket.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see why it's such a valuable resource for anyone who owns a home. But before we jump into negotiating tactics, let's take a look at what the guide has to say about some of the common questions and concerns people have during the claims process. We've covered a lot of ground, from the initial shock of the flood to documenting the damage and even negotiating with the insurance company.
It's a journey no homeowner wants to take, but this guide really equips you to handle every step of the way.
Speaking of journeys, let's talk about what happens after you've settled with the insurance company. The recovery phase.
That's where the rubber meets the road, right? You've got the settlement check. Now it's time to actually get those repairs done and put your life back together.
Exactly. Does the guide offer any advice on how to manage those funds, find contractors, and actually get started with the rebuilding process?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
This is where all that detailed documentation we talked about earlier becomes your blueprint for recovery. Remember those photos, the inventory, the repair estimates you gathered?
Yeah.
They're not just for the insurance claim. They're your roadmap for putting your home back together.
So it's like having a shopping list and a set of instructions all in one?
Precisely. The guide emphasizes using your documentation to create a prioritized list of repairs,
Okay.
starting with the most essential ones like structural damage or safety hazards.
Okay. So you've got your plan. Now you need to find the right people to do the work.
And this is where the guide really stresses the importance of doing your research. It's not just about picking the first contractor who shows up at your door with a hammer and a smile. You need to find reputable, licensed, and insured professionals who have experience with flood damage restoration.
This is where those online reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations can be gold, right?
Absolutely. The guide even suggests getting multiple bids from different contractors, comparing their estimates against your own documentation and the insurance settlement.
It's like shopping for a car. You wouldn't just buy the first one you see without checking out the competition.
Exactly. And remember, you're not just rebuilding your home, you're rebuilding your life.
Hmm.
So take your time, find the right partners, and make sure the work is done right.
This is all such valuable advice. I feel like this guide isn't just about filing a claim, it's about navigating a whole life disruption.
It's about regaining a sense of control after a chaotic event. And speaking of control, the guide also offers some really insightful tips for preventing future flood damage.
Oh, interesting. Like what kind of things?
Things like elevating your utilities, installing flood vents, or even landscaping your property to redirect water flow.
So it's not just about recovering from this flood, it's about minimizing the risk of it happening again.
Precisely. It's about taking a proactive approach to protect your home and your peace of mind.
Well, I have to say, this flood insurance claim guide has been a real eye-opener. It's packed with practical advice, step-by-step guidance, and even some emotional support for navigating what can be a really overwhelming experience.
It's like having a trusted friend by your side, helping you through every step of the process.
So for you, our listener, if you ever find yourself facing a flood situation, remember, this guide exists. It can be your lifeline through a challenging time.
And one final thought, even if you haven't experienced a flood, think about the principles we've discussed today. The importance of documentation, being proactive, understanding your rights, and advocating for yourself. These are all valuable skills that can apply to any type of insurance claim or even just navigating life's unexpected challenges.
That's such a great point. It's all about being informed, prepared, and empowered to take control. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.